Hello everybody and welcome back to the NLC. We are ready to day 2 in the 6th week of the regular play. And to bring you guys all through the action, we have 3 lovely gentlemen. One of them you will know from yesterday, some of them for the previous weeks. I have Middle Cut over there. Then I have Initializer down there, and then kind of down there. No, down there. I have Ruddy, and you can't see my arm because I'm back home on the green screen. That is not probably good. So yeah, that's great.
Look, guys, I feel like Middle Cost is showing us up because he's hearing about 30,000 colours blaring out into the screen. And it's like me in a sort of like off-white t-shirt.
Yeah,
you got grey,
we got
those are
literally the grey behind Rude, dude.
Yeah.
To be fair, Initialize, right? Like, off-white t-shirts are pretty expensive, so you are kind of flexing on us.
That's true. It's such a quite cool t-shirt. Like, it's like this cool, like, Japanesey thing with, like I like
yeah,
it.
Rude, let's look at yours now.
No, I think we're good. Actually. Maybe just the plain white t-shirt isn't great.
Give us a look. Let's see the broadcast.
I'm going to stay sat down, I think. I think that's what's going to happen here.
Okay, so let's roll with the plain white tees and ask Kata Delilah what's it like in our standings in the NLC, because there's a...
Beautiful.
My word, okay.
So at the top of the standings right now, 9-2, both Burden and Natives. A bit of a fight for first place going on around there. Ruddy distinguishing themselves from the rest of that middle of the pack here. Nord Esports, Fall, Domino Esports, and Vanir kind of in that middle pack right now. Nord is ahead by just a singular window, a little bit of a sinking error here. Unique got a very surprising victory yesterday, as well as Vanir also took home a surprising victory. So that's kind of interesting in terms of the overall standings here. Guys, anything else that you guys kind of want to add to the standings? I'll start with you, Initialize.
Yeah, I mean, the big one there is that the slight issue with the graphics, because, of course, Nord are 5 and 6. They are currently in 4th and in control of their own fate. They are facing off against Ruddy today, which, of course, is a big deal in terms of trying to make sure they continue to have things in their own hands. But a lot of teams are stuck just behind them at that 4 and 7 mark, and if Nord slip up, there are so many teams that want to snipe away that final spot in playoffs, and it really does just make a huge amount of difference. That particularly that 4th to 3rd spot is very much up in the air, and a lot of teams are really vying over these last few games to make sure they are the ones in playoffs, and they're trying to make sure Nord slip up.
Yeah, but let's look at the games that we have on hand today, because those are ultimately going to decide our standings. We're going to start off with Ruddy versus Nord, Unique versus Verdant, Vanir versus Domino, and closing out with Natives versus Fourth Wall here. And let's kind of head into the first match of the day here. That is going to be our match of the day as well. Ruddy Esports versus Nord. And Initialize. I want to go to you first here in this one. Pretty interesting matchup here.
I mean, yeah, because it's coming in off 2 very different games. Ruddy got rolled yesterday, and it was not pretty. And it was against, like, well, it was Unique of all teams as well. Like, that is a really rough state. And you look at the other side, Nord, actually, really nice win. They did so pretty damn cleanly. I mean, the Ash, holy moly. It's 2 very different looks from 2 teams that have been, I think, very inconsistent. Though Nord have been weirdly consistent in their inconsistency with the 0-2 into the 2-0 into the 0-2. That kind of flip-flop of weeks really on and weeks really off has been something they've been trying to shake all the time, and that's also true of Ruddy.
That being said,
I think I'll still... Yeah,
this isn't the week to change it, because that means they go 1-1 instead of 2-0.
Yeah. I mean, like, just to finish up the point, it's like... I think I still give the edge to Ruddy just off the kind of the highs we have seen from them. But the point is, you can never give them a confident win because they have been so inconsistent. And when they lose real hard.
I think that's fair. I don't really think there's anything other than these 2 teams seem just flagrantly inconsistent at times. And Ruddy have been a more fight-centric team, very much looking at hands-checking most teams. And if their composition isn't up to scratch, sometimes that leads them into pitfalls, but also sometimes that baits the enemy team into taking fights that they otherwise might not have done, and then the enemy team will end up losing it because Ruddy just outhands them on a couple of occasions. So I'm looking at MB carry mainly for this team for the most part, as how crazy that guy's been, because I feel like even when the team doesn't look so great, MV carry is always somebody who's trying his best or looking good doing it.
Yasuo player, Yasuo team.
Yeah, well, you consider the pairing that he's going up against in terms of Indecision and Omon, who have like matched and sort of been emblematic of the inconsistency that Nord have had. If that duo is on, it looks very, very good, and I like the adaptation that they showed yesterday, where it wasn't necessarily as much of indecision playing towards Omen, it was actually a lot of indecision playing towards the bottom lane. So I think maybe the way that you actually make that mid-jungle pairing work out is you break it a little bit and you have indecision enabling your bottom lane, and when you've got Hido there, that's not a bad thing to do.
No, absolutely. So let's move into the second game of the day here. Unique versus Verdant. Verdant looking at a potential 0-2 week. I think that's the big story here, right? Because this reinvigorated Unique roster is also like something that you need to take note of here, right? Like Cass came in yesterday, lots of unknowns, Billicott, in terms of like what this roster actually can produce.
Yeah, but I think good stuff from what we've seen so far. Like Unique, there were always a team that have had plans, but they've not really been able to execute on them in terms of their identity. I think that Cars coming in, I'm not necessarily sure that he is a better player than Woljo, but he is a different style of player who is a lot more focused on getting enabled in the mid game, and that's where players like Unique, Korn, and Uko in the top lane for Unique also look really good. So I think this is just a case of Unique building around, finding their style, their identity. Going up against Verdant is going to be rough. Yes, they lost it yesterday in a pretty tragic fashion at the end there to Veneer, but we need to remember that they were the team that was winning the majority of that game, and even though Unique are going to be buoyed by that win from yesterday, they're still going up against a team who have won more than they've lost.
The numbers still look good.
Yeah.
You know, it is
They do.
Foundations of a team that have been to not just NLC competition, but EMA Masters, right, intercontinental competition as well. So there's certainly that element of, well, when it all comes down to it, the prestige that comes behind a Verdant name just adds a little bit more, unfortunately.
I will throw one last wrench in the works before we have to move on, because I think I'm looking at Weetu, he's like, I want to move on. Just that basically, Verdant are also a little bit predictable. And if Unique are coming in with that unpredictability factor and that unknown factor, maybe this is the moment to strike, however narrow that window may be.
Yeah, okay, so as you were talking about here, Initialize, we're going to move on directly into Domino versus Veneer. Two of these teams here are kind of trying to get that fourth playoff spot away from the hands of Nord Rooted, right? And we were talking about those teams a little bit before we went live, and I want like a quick one-sentence primer for this matchup.
Okay, so both teams are 4-7, both looking to sneak into that fourth place. I think Domino have looked fairly strong around their around their jungle, particularly Shackle has looked really powerful. I think Snabby's roams also tend to be quite successful in the majority of their games. If we look on the flip side, Veneer have now shown us with Moxart as well that they play toward their AD carry, albeit regardless of who that AD carry is. And Moxart yesterday came in and was genuinely terrifying. So a little bit of an unknown as well for what we get to see in that regard, because they've also got a substitute AD carry in today. But yeah, that's what you're looking at. We're a little bit scared of what they can do from the bot side of the map, where you're looking at Domino to see if they can get on two said bot sides successfully in team fights.
Okay, and I want you to do this a little bit shorter this time, Initialize. Final primer for Natives versus 4-4. That's our last match of the day.
So, obviously Natives favored. Natives are now tied in game score with Verdant again after their shot loss yesterday. They are not tied in head-to-head, so they really want to keep the pressure on Verdant by winning today and trying to get that game ahead of Verdant slip up again. Fourth wall. Oh, boys. They are so close to playoffs, but their last 3 games are so tough. They've got Natives, they've got Ruddy, they've got Verdant. It's put up or shut up time. Time to take down a big gun, take down a giant, and you can make playoffs. But it is damn hard.
Yeah, and let's rush directly into predictions because picks and bans are almost ready, so we gotta get these in here as well because, you know, I love to look at this. Yesterday, none of us really had a good day. I think that's safe to say, right? But in the overall scheme of things here, this kind of shows, like, there's a bit of diversion in terms of who's winning out of Nord and out of Ruddy. That's why it's our match of the day. Anything else kind of to talk about here, like Millicott, because you're gone with Nord and I've gone with Ruddy, so that's like the biggest thing that was shaking up the overall standings.
So yeah, so I think that the Nord Ruddy, it's basically, do you think that Nord are going to come in with a strong enough plan to counter what Ruddy are going to do, and are Ruddy going to fail the hands check in the early game that they so often like to go to? I actually want to focus in on that Domino Veneer matchup because whilst as a broadcast team we've pretty much universally predicted Domino, those teams are even in the standings. I think this is very much a case of us looking at Domino stylistically and going, this is a great team at fighting against a team that plays around their AD carry. because the likes of Shackle, the likes of Clover 7, they're incredibly creative players, especially in the mid game going for these flanks. So if you're putting all of your eggs in the Moxox basket, that's a basket that could very quickly get thrown up into the air with eggs scattering all over the place.
Yeah, I'm looking into this as well. I think that I actually want to hear this from you because Nessa, you don't have your own little column in this graphic, so I want you to give your 4 predictions for today.
Is that to me?
Yes, that was to you.
It was. I just was like, was it it's me? I get to talk. Yeah. I'm so excited. I think there are some understandable half-half votes on that. You can sort of see the slight uncertainty in Nord and Ruddy for obvious reasons. You kind of looking at some of the other ones, you go, yeah, Verdant natives are getting the nod because they're, you know, Verdant and natives, and that does make some sense. That said, if there was a day, if there was a time of the split for mistakes and upsets to start happening, the end of the split is when it starts to happen. The pressure is on. Verdant are suddenly like, well, what happens if we don't get first? That gets to people's heads. It's gotten to teams' heads before. Hell, we saw it last year a number of times from teams. Themselves fall from grace for crying out loud. It's not the first time it's happened. Riddle kind of slipped up at the end of the split last year as well. You've got to keep an eye out for those upsets. For all you can't predict them necessarily because it's in the name, right? If there was a time for people to play not like themselves, when the pressure is on right at the end, when things start to change up a little bit, people throw some curveballs. Last couple of weeks is when it happens.
Yeah, Rudolph as well. Like, speaking of curveballs, like, is there anything we should be looking out for here in the first match of the day that is coming up? Sure, that could be a curveball. It could be a pick. Like, we know Ruddy are good for some mad drafts, but do you think Nord has something up their sleeves?
So I'll just say, because picks and bans for these two teams are like trying to.
You'll get like 2 seconds. Sorry, I turned you off here for a second. I'm turning on the picks and ban graphic. It should come in right about now.
Lovely. Oh, excellent. Oh, fantastic. I didn't realize it was that easy. So, all the time we've been typing in chat, casters start the game. You've got a remote that. Well, right. Nonetheless, we are into the champion select, and yeah, I hope he uses that button a little bit more often. A couple of bans here that we're seeing out of the side of Nord, targeting away Envy carries champion pool here, Rude Dude.
Yeah, I mean, you want to get rid of the Aswa. I feel like Ruddy have shown their prolificness with that pick already. Makes sense that they're going to ban that away. Happy that we're seeing Melio bans for all of you out there that are still a little bit tentative on if those nerfs did anything. They didn't. This champ is still bonkers. Please pick it in solo queue if you have the time to play an enchanter in the support role. And we get to see some more customary red side bans. I think this Rel and the Maokai rising in that priority. Certainly add up to me. A first pick Ash, though, for Nord. And I think this matches nicely with what they did yesterday.
I get handed tea by my brother as I'm about to spill it because Hido was an absolute monster on this yesterday. We went 15, 1, and 10 into a comp that had all the tools to make his life unplayable. And he still went absolutely God mode on it. And you got to see, do Ruddy have an answer? Because clearly they will have seen what happened yesterday. It's not a lot of time to practice, but they're going to draft a couple things that could potentially deal with that. Ezreal, very slippery. Even if you do get with the arrow, you can arcane shift away. You can throw out some poke and try and match that. Sejuani in for Zapto is not the Nunu that really didn't work yesterday for all that he is famous for it. My decision need to see what he's going to look at. Something like the Rel again, maybe. Something with a little bit of spice and engage. It's certainly been something that has made Nord look a lot more cohesive in the mid game. And some of those easy go buttons, especially in a big game like this, I would much prefer to see. And a Rakan would do just that.
Yeah, obviously options of Nautilus now as a response, Leona maybe for Pui, and I think that the deny away from Pui's Rakan is something that you always have to mention. That Nord here going to take away one of the more comfortable picks for Pui, his most played throughout this split so far. But I don't think that Ash is without the ability to counter, even though yesterday we saw a lot of tools that could do it. I think that Ash still a very weak, very immobile AD carry, rather. Not weak, need to be careful on that. Her first item spike comes through and hits like a truck. It depends on which one we end up seeing Hido go for. If it's anything like yesterday, could be quite devastating when we see that first item come through. But before then, definitely punishable.
Let me step in on this one then, because Tristana is something that is basically permaban or permapick in the LPL right now. People are wrecking house with it. It's a very different vibe to how it's played in the West, where people's understanding of wave state, people's synergy, particularly between mid, jungle, and support, isn't quite there, because Tristana wants to shove, add infinitum, get free time with towers, get the ability to jump forward and really aggressively trade. If you are not paired up with your jungler. If you're not paired up with wave six, it looks a lot less good. I know Azael has his issues with how it works in LCS in particular. On paper, this can be very scary for Oman. You've certainly got the pick tools with the Ashe and the Rakan to make sure you can split push and have a safe roaming kind of pick pairing in the mid lane as well. Answer though from Envy, mid lane, Sylas, pick.
Yeah, and this just feels like quintessential MV carry. We were talking about him a little bit in the green room before he went live. Loves his melee carries, and it's also a great pairing up with the Sejuani for Zapdo. Obviously, double melee means it's a lot easier to get that Sejuani permafrost passive down. And considering that you've already drafted an Ezreal in the bottom lane, you're likely not playing towards that side of the map anyway.
No, and I want to mention quickly that this Sylas pick is the traditional anti-counter pick to Tristana. Tristana had been picked into Sylas numerous times because of its popular matchup, so I do think that NB carry really giving himself a difficult time. Of course, more than happy to see how he plays it out. Definitely a chance at about that level 3 marker between when Sylas has a really high level spike, I guess, more than anything, for him to try and take some trades. But second round of bans to come through. Get to see a lot of top lane bans from Nord. You want to get rid of that Malphite because you've got double AD carries. The Ornn as well, just preventing good engage tools for Shihan.
Yeah, and I think on that note as well, locking in the Leona to go with the Sejuani, to go with the Sylas, your ability to brawl right now with this comp is strong. And for all the individual matchup for the Sylas and the versus the Tristana is a bit rough, as Ruddy rightly calls out. The fact that you have got a Sejuani to pair up that melee synergy is really, really potent. And I wonder now whether Shihan looks towards something like a Jax, another melee option. It does look like Nord will respond with a Poppy, though, to try and keep safe some of these slightly squishier members from the big brawling combo that Ruddy have got together.
Yeah, and this could be going towards Indecision as an aggressive jungle pick. Could go up towards Catchos in the top lane, who has fallen back onto a few of these more denial teamfight picks. Nord aren't really a team that plays towards their top laner too much, but when he turns up to a teamfight, he's always going to be able to provide value. Some of those slicing maelstroms last game were crucial in ensuring that Hito only died once.
Yeah, it's the protection composition, right? You can see there's a buster shot, there's a poppycopter to knock people away. We've got a Kennen creating a big AoE zone that people can't enter. Makes a lot of sense that they're trying to protect Hito, protect Oman as well. These double marksmen in the late game going to be quite powerful, particularly with a nice amount of magic damage coming from that Kennen. But Shihan has laid down a little bit of a gauntlet here and said that Darius into Kennen is a favourable matchup for him and wants to take it.
I'm not sure that's entirely true, because your wasting on top of the cannon aren't fantastic. The only thing I will say is cannon wave clear involves in going into the wave, putting all the lightning sparks on it, and then coming back out again. That puts you at risk of Darius pulling you in. But generally speaking, you don't have the same gap closer that, say, a Jax does consistently, where you can potentially jump on a cannon at points, even if it is still a little bit rough. And often it has been the Jax with the Sejuani as an option at the higher levels of play around the world. Still, though, it's a bit of spice. It's another brawl option. It pairs up well with the Sejuani. I think my eyes do have to turn to Zapdo to make sure that the synergy that they have with the laners can come out, because otherwise I'm looking at a lot of priority for Nord in their lanes, particularly in those solo lanes, and that could get really scary if Nord are allowed to shove without any response.
I think it gets very scary if Nord are allowed to scale, right? Yeah. Because Ruddy will run into access issues as it gets later. Yes, you've got engage that can come out from the Leona, from the Sejuani, but a lot of that is going to be single target, and if you aren't able to lock down that single target, then the kiting potential that Nord have on their side is absolutely ridiculous.
I just always hate playing Darius versus champions, specifically like Ashe, where you've got to go through volley plus auto attacks that slow you. I think Shihan, very flash reliant in this game, very ghost reliant hopefully as well on that top side to see if he can get access to that backline, because it's not going to be easy otherwise, trying to walk through, as previously mentioned, a slicing Maelstrom, the Kennen ulti itself, and then obviously all of the Poppy and Tristana disengage as well. I do think this Darius is going to have a very hard time playing out if it doesn't get a lead in the early game. And when we look at the composition that Ruddy have built up, they've got an Ezreal and a Leona. That is the tried and true I don't care about bot lane duo, where you leave Ezreal on his own, you send Leona to a different lane.
And then, in fairness, if you have Sejuani plus Leona, and then you've got the melee solo laners as well to really proc in with that Sejuani passive, your ability to turn up to a solo lane, turn up to a skirmish, and just CC someone into Doom is pretty damn high. But you do need to make that happen. And that's partly why I'm saying, look, my eyes are on Zapdo, because where he is on the map is where Ruddy want to be on the map. And we've also seen when Ruddy fall behind on the map, what happens.
Yeah, well, and yesterday, like, he was incredibly active in the early game on the Nunu, but crucially, that activity wasn't able to actually translate into kills, and Ruddy did end up going down in this game. So I think it's right that you highlight him, because you do need a lot more of that early proactivity to get you towards those one-item spikes a little bit sooner. For Indecision, though, on the other side, what are we thinking about for his early game plan on the Poppy here?
Oh, I'm expecting just trying to keep his lanes, honestly, happy, because he's going to have Tristana pushing in the mid lane. I think if you want to sit around this Tristana, there's no harm, no foul. We've seen Zapdo do a lot of kooky ganks into the mid lane where it may not be as early on as some mid laners may expect. Indecision's job this game is to buy an early pink ward, put it down on the bot side of the river, and say to his mid laner, you do it on the top side, and then we win.
I feel like the word kooky is going to be the next Sainsbury's car park rap. You hit it up. Come on. Like, Regan, Jake, I know you're listening. Make it happen. If it's not in there, he'll be very upset. I think I'll also say...
Did you see the post advertising today's match of the day, which is...
I didn't see it.
This game is match of the day. A slobber knocker.
A slobber I didn't see that. So I thought it was from Ruddy. I thought Ruddy had put something out, which of course it probably...
Well, I mean, that's a fairly Ruddy word, slobber knocker.
It is slobber knocker.
It's
cold.
Apparently, means an exciting match. Which,
it means a slobber knocker.
You don't know that.
Slobber knocker is just a weird combination of words. I wasn't too sure what was going on, but...
Well, I can't say that, because I feel like if you get those words up, it gets a bit more concerning,
Foxy and Veteran did manage to paint the airwaves blue yesterday, so hopefully we're going to manage to avoid that this time around, as we are heading on to the Rift for our first game of the day, our match of the day, and MV Carry dashing away to prevent himself getting jumped onto by the Nord squad.
I'm just putting out. You saw that little alien emote. This is a throwback to NLC from last year. Do you know what it was called by some of the NLC crew last year?
Why don't you teach us NLC law?
It was called Schliegums. I believe so. If I'm remembering correctly, because it was of course something that Alex was teaching me, as it was something that some of the junglers were using. And I'm going to have to remember exactly who it was, because I was going to teach you and I forgot what I was going to teach you, which is not a great start. Well done,
okay.
Me.
You've turned up over to the lesson.
It's gone really wrong within a minute and 10 seconds, which is not a great start.
Sam has picked up the lesson plan, written the title, and then gone, job done.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Exactly that. Oh.
15 minutes of work, 2-hour break.
Porp on Singularity. Porp on Singularity. That's who it was last year.
And what was the purpose of Schliegum?
I mean, it's Schliegums. It's just a really good emote. What do you want? What do you want from me?
Okay. No, that's fine.
Well, why
if its purpose was to be a good emote, that's fine. That's all I needed.
When would you pop that emote yourself, Ruddy? Just think about it, and you've got the answer.
This is poor law, but I don't use the emote wheel at all.
Right, middle course to Duocast. We're getting rid of Ruddy.
I'm not going to lie, initialize. It's going to be you on your own, because I've also never used the emote wheel.
I unbound it the second it came into the game. Like, it took up one of my keys that I regularly use, and I went, nope, unbinding. Thank you.
Interesting pathing we're actually seeing here from Indecision. Did start on his walls and is going to be spotted out clearing that blue. Pui hitting the level 2. Toaster Arcane shifting in. Seneca getting ignited, and that's the Mystic shots are stacking up. Toaster's going to need to be very careful as Hido turning it around. Still only level 1, but this is what the Ashe can do. Overstep and she will punish you.
Yeah, one of those champs where with the Cosmic, or not Cosmic Insight, excuse me, the Inspiration Tree, Approach Velocity key rune. Most broken champion to pick that that rune up with, you can just pick up every single auto attack. You just get movement speed chasing them down. It's like you have a half-bound axe for free.
It's so busted. Champions like Ashe, champions like Senna do abuse that really heavily. At least the Ezreal was running for the longsword, so did have a couple more pots to burn through. But of course, when you are trading health bar on your support versus health bar on your AD carry, you have less pots to work with as mid lane.
What a great jump.
Very well timed from Omen. Zapdo investing the flash. I mean, that's what we wanted to see from the man from Ruddy, right? Get active on the map in the early game, but once again, at least for the time being, not working out.
And you do get to see a little bit there of that level 3 through 5 Sylas spike that I was alluding to in the draft, where he's actually able to take some decent trades versus Oman. You also saw that Oman himself has taken the bone plating, recognizing this window for Sylas to try and trade back. Now you're on a ward here, Zapdo.
Yeah.
Catch cost quite happy to recognize that and maybe sit a little bit further back, but the wave is not in a good spot for him for the time being.
Okay. What does the... Oh, dear, moment. I'll take this back because Indecision's here to make Ruddy feel awful.
Yeah, I mean, Toaster is going to be able to arcane shift away. Does the flash and the heal. This is a big dive from Nord and Ruddy.
Oh, they're in trouble.
We're going to respond to it with a TP. Envy carry level 3. Pui taking a fair bit of damage from those shots. And Toaster healing as Indecision stepped too far forward.
No.
And Pui will take him out for first blood.
Indecision by
baited.
name. Indecision by nature. You don't just get to go. The play was over. Just leave. Don't go back.
I think he got baited a little bit by the volley that takes Toaster to sub 100. Toaster then, quite rightly, uses one of his summoner spells, heals back up, but by that point we've already seen Indecision commit just a bit too far forward, and that's a really big loss for the Nord jungler. If we take a look at just the CS numbers on our junglers at the minute, Zapdo has effectively done a full clear with all 6 camps, where Indecision spent a lot of time trying to make that bot dive work. With 4.5 minutes into this first game, and weirdly enough both junglers haven't taken their red buff, but one jungler is much further ahead than the other.
Well, that's because, Nord are a blue team with their logo, and Ruddy are a red colour team, so they're just taking the red buff a little later, and they're not living up to their colour sake, and I think that gives Nord the advantage, and that's great analysis.
Okay, so we're ignoring the jungle level disparity
that's
for
what I'm
favour
for.
of colour.
Yeah, exactly.
Literal
exactly.
colour casting is what you've done right there.
Yeah,
so.
exactly. Look, it's just magic colour wheel theory. Come on.
Go on then. I agree with you. That's how it works.
Don't agree with me. That's what you should disagree
red.
with.
I'm trying to work out where they actually are. They're not complementary or anything like
They
that.
are.
They're quite opposing. They're not
quite
red.
good.
They're not
Blue red
complementary
is a
colours.
huge deck. That's like, is it spell slinging decks?
Oh, you're talking about Magic the Gathering now,
I am,
Sam.
Yeah. I was. That was where I was going with that.
Absolute rascal.
I was talking about primary school teaching, so that was where I was going with the colour wheel.
Oh, well,
dear.
this is what happens when you've got 2 play-by-plays on the cast. We go back to primary school in terms of the level of learning that's going on. Catchcos has been having his way with Shihan a little bit in terms of the laning phase here. It's to be expected with the cannon up against the Darius, and if Indecision is able to make a dive work here, it's going to be real bad for the Ruddy top laner. Slicing Maelstrom to start it off into the slam against the
nice.
wall,
Lovely.
and Catchcos gets the kill and gets out with his life.
Really well executed there. You could see Nord had this little bit of time where they were like, actually, who needs to take aggro here? And Catchcos recognises, okay, it's probably me, because if he ever gets in range of the apprehend, Shihan almost definitely trades a kill back. Really well executed dive on that top side, and Catchcos saving his mobility spells to get out of the turret range as opposed to closing the gap in the first place.
I mean, yeah, to double down on that, you saw basically Shihan's held onto the flash, which is fair enough, but did not get to use the decimate, didn't get to use the apprehend, really. And actually just CC chained after the range discrepancy is kind of abused there, and really well managed. Of course, won't have the teleport, but fortunately hasn't lost too much in the way of the wave, so it's still, not absolutely out of this game, but it's not a great start for the Darius in a game that was always going to be a little tricky to navigate anyway.
And it does come at a cost, right? We saw Indecision dive that top side. Zapdo walks in, takes the dragon. There's a 1-for-1 in terms of things that have been claimed for either side. And it starts Ruddy with that soul win condition just a little bit sooner than Nord maybe would have liked. But it does once again hammer home this advantage in the top side of the map. Catchcos was having a good time of things before Shihan made his way, or before Indecision made his way up there. Getting a kill on a TP-less top laner just compounds that issue.
And then when you consider what the rest of the map is doing for Nord, Omen is getting the shove in mid lane as we expected. Hito has also been able to generate a pretty significant advantage for himself in the bottom lane. Would be even more if it wasn't for that earlier blunder on the dive. So Nord kind of looking good all across the map at the moment.
This doesn't feel particularly relative to or representative of a Ruddy comp. We're 8 minutes into a game almost, and there's only been 1 kill for them.
Yeah, I think that's fair. The only thing I will say is this comp really comes online at level 6, which has just come through. But now you've got the Glacial Prison. MV can steal all the ultimates around when there's some great ultimates to steal in this game. You've got the Noxian Guillotine for Shihan. And now you've got a little bit more kill threat to work with. So I imagine things like the second dragon, things like Herald much more doable. And now Catchcos without the flash, while Shihan still has his, and Ghost will be up a lot sooner than the flash, you can potentially look to abuse that as the Darius with a little bit of help from someone like Zapdo and Pui, who is up here right now.
Catchcos has been a stable top laner for Nord this entire season. Even in their losses, never really feels like the issue for Nord. I do want to point out that Ruddy trying to contest this Herald.
Level 6s.
As Sam mentioned, they've got those level 6s. They've got a really good chance to fight here. Sejuani Leona, a very powerful 2v2 for layering stuns. But there's no pushing the top side. It's meaning this is a difficult access point for Ruddy without Shihan there. Looks like both teams are going to get the Herald to reset, and we're going to get round 2 probably quite soon.
Yeah, and that is interesting because Pui is only level 5 when you compare it to Seneca's level 6. So if the Ruddy man is able to get his ultimate fairly soon, then maybe they're going to have a better time contesting cross-map. Ash arrow onto Zapdo, but the Sejuani, not really the target that you need to be locking down with the ultimate. Seneca still on the flank, Ruddy committing to this a little bit more as the Keeper's Bird is going to come through. An indecision, flashing forward onto Zapdo. Stolen slicing Maelstrom as they're layered over the top each other like a Venn diagram, but it is looking much, much better for Ruddy. Omen jumping in, gets one, but he's going to get sliced down as well. No, flashes over the wall and escapes, but MV Carry will follow him, not to the ends of the earth. 2 for 1 in favor of Ruddy.
Oh man, that overlap in the Venn diagram. You know what's in the middle? A slobber knocker. We finally get a bit of a skirmish. Oh, really get more. That was nicely aggressive. But either way, they find themselves with a huge few kills. They find themselves now with the Herald as well as bot lane. Hido and Toaster.
That is the difference between summon a heal and summon a cleanse. Cleanse does nothing for you versus an Ashe. Or versus an Ezreal, rather, and the heal obviously very impactful there for Toaster. No enchanted crystal arrow because Hido fired it up to that top side earlier on, and the Ezreal with that Sheen power spike hitting just that bit harder means that he's able to come away with the 1v1.
And how the game swings. It was Nord looking great in all the lanes, but as soon as Ruddy went for that play, things start to go better for them all across the map, and they've evened up the gold disparity a little bit. They've also got that Drake in that back pocket with another one spawning in a minute as MV Carry going for another aggressive trade on the Sylas.
This is not the time to go for these aggressive trades. It's Kraken Slayer versus Components. Omen has free reign of mid lane right now.
That's exactly fair. And in fairness, you know, we said, oh, this is a quiet game. Ruddy have only got 1 kill. Well, this doesn't feel like a Ruddy game. The moment we say that, madness occurs. But even then, we're still seeing what Ruddy called out in draft, which is basically, look, Tristana, outside of an all-in from the Sylas, which you can disengage from with your jump, with your rocket, with your buster shot, is in a pretty commanding point in this in the mid lane. At least you've got the Herald to work with, and with Dragon spawning in 30 seconds, you imagine Ruddy will be looking for that second Dragon themselves.
Going to be difficult, though, with MV Carry on a reset at the time being, so Nord will have the momentary numbers advantage toward the bottom side of the rift, and I do have the lion's share of the vision in the river. Hido, a lot less accelerated on the Ashe this time around, but that's one of the beauties of the pick. You're always going to be able to provide that utility no matter how fed you are, and when the rest of your buddies come to play, locking down the enemy is a pretty good way to set up kills. Pui knocked into the skies. He's going to respond with a solo flare, but Hido not able to follow up with damage. Finally, invest the enchanted crystal out to disengage from Zapdo, as he's also joined the fray. Sheerhan rotating down on the Darius. The tower still there. 4 members of Nord. This is going to be a difficult dive.
Hatchcock still has TP, though. He can make this come down if he needs to. He's also getting a lot of free time. If Nord can get away, it's a free turret for them in the top side of the rift. And Ruddy, they disengage from the fight down on that bot side. Hido with a poor flash doesn't manage to follow up there. He's trying to flash to dodge the solar flare, but mispositions himself in doing so we can't chase down that kill. And overall, Ruddy, they find an advantage on the bot side for losing out in the top lane.
Yeah, but I mean, it's a heavy trade because Xian just sacks that entire top lane. We just said, like, Kashko is going to get this turret. At least with the Herald, they should be able to trade turret. But that's still a rough trade to make, and you can see that CS discrepancy is only getting larger, and they don't even manage to trade the turret. There's still a full plate remaining there, and I don't think it's going to be that easy to get through the Ashe wave clear until they pull off another one of those. At least they get the Dragon on top. Yeah. But that is a big consolation prize that Nord take.
And it's a really different paradigm now for Nord compared with their game yesterday. Kashkos didn't get a gank that entire game on the Kennen, but this time he's so much more accelerated. Got that massive CS lead up on Sheerhan like we're referring to. Got that first tower gold as well pre-40 minutes. Loads of plates invested into this Kennen. So he's going to be able to dominate on the side lane, but also when he comes into those team fights close to level 11 with the slicing Maelstrom, he's going to be absolutely lethal. Toaster flashing away. They're going to use the ultimate as well. Gets out of the situation.
Close. Needed to burn that flash. That was nearly a very good engage from Seneca. It doesn't quite work out, and I will also point out that is a static shiv on the Kennen as well. Not the standard itemization we've grown used to on Kennens over the years, but you can see the concept, a little bit more wave clear, a little bit safer wave clear to allow a bit more of a shove against a Darius who you really want to be nowhere near as best as you can. So being able to clear that wave a little bit more safely from range, especially when Kennen does like to weave those auto attacks in, and so can abuse that static shiv proc on your autos. It does make some sense.
It does mean that with the static shiv, right, it's a bit of a dichotomy where Kachkos wants to be laning versus Shihan, but still wants to be as far away from him as possible.
Yeah, exactly.
In the same sense.
Yeah, exactly.
Because he's got such an advantage over this Darius right now. 40 CS, the entire first brick going his way. If we could get to toggle the gold, right, you'll be able to tell just how monumentally far ahead Kachkos is. There's a 1.2k gold lead for Nord. I dare say that the gold lead between the two top laners is way more than that. Yeah, it's 2.5k there. So there's a decided advantage for the top laner of Nord.
Oh, Flash engaged that, though, able to get over the wall, but it's a
Kachkos.
catch on to Envy carry on the back line.
Ow.
Biero was aiming for something different, and Omen is able to get one. Zapto not going to be able to escape for the moment on the Sejuani. Solar Flare from Pui to try and save his jungler, but he's not going to be successful. And Nord get 2 unanswered kills. Kachkos teleporting back to the top lane to stop the shove from Shihan.
Yes, I'm experiencing it too.
Yes, I know. I'm gonna go anyway and pretend I know what's happening on screen, because right now I'm witnessing the beautiful of grey screen. This is just, Death Simulator, so my normal Summoner's Rift experience. But like, effectively what we're seeing is Nord have got a really nasty teamfight comp, especially if Kennen can find a flank. And Ruddy skirmish well. Team fighting is doable, but it's a little bit more reliant on tracking the flanks. This time, where Shihan's roam bot lane didn't really work out, they kind of got some plates on bot lane, but that roam cost a lot. This time, Shihan just gets to turn up. No, sorry, Shihan. Kachkos gets to turn up on the cannon, murder a couple people, turn up top lane, catch the wave, and feel really happy about it. And that gold lead, yeah, it's only 1,000, but it is feeling pretty nice for Nord right now. Although
it does look like in the aftermath.
Yeah.
In the aftermath, it looks like Ruddy have managed to find some sort of collapse back. Indecision and Hedo both going down, and it looks like, well, Nord have already failed where they succeeded so well yesterday. 2 deaths on the Xayah.
Is this what the grey screen does? It summons death onto another team. We're going to come back into the game. We're going to metaphysical kindred. I feel like the entire concept of kindred is fairly metaphysical at the moment.
Exactly that. But like, obviously, there is that kind of anthropomorphization of death in the form of the lamb and the wolf, and you've got the spirit blossom version. This is like a significantly
that is the antithesis of
That's
the antithesis of anthropomorphization.
But yeah, this is exactly, it's the opposite side of that, because you've got to
You're
understand
taking
that
death, you can't anthropomorphize death into a wolf. That's not how anthropomorphization works.
But it can be anthropomorphized into, but it can be into like an anthropomorphized like
Brew,
lamb.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Do you want to just go for a couple minutes? I feel like we're not.
If you guys are going to keep talking about too many A words, then you know what? Carry on.
This is fine. Cause like,
this is what happens when you roll into the NLC podcast and you put 2 decidedly high vocab play-by-plays in a cat one order.
We haven't done the Scooby Doo voice yet, Ru.
Oh jeez, middle cart.
Oh jeez, I've just been hit by an enchanted crystal arrow from across the map. Scoob, I'm gonna die. Scoob.
Oh no, it's not even 20 minutes in. This is a bad sign.
We've got 3 more games of this, folks.
Woo! That's actually a fairly important pick. That's a really nice Ash Arrow.
Yeah. Kachkos might die for it, though. Backing away, not investing all of his time into taking down that tower. Teleport is actually going to come through from Nord, and they are responding to the attempt at the plate in the bottom lane. Omen very, very fed on this Tristana alongside his top laner, but the CC comes through, and Toaster claims his 3rd kill of the game. Zato going to be knocked back, but it's another shutdown for the Ezreal.
Okay, so traded in the mid lane, though. Tier 1 turret does fall. Ruddy here managed to find themselves another couple of kills, so getting themselves gold in their back pockets for favour of map advantage for Nord. All of the outer turrets outside of that bot lane Tier 1 have now gone down. It means access to that top side of the map, making sure that they can secure vision around Baron later on is going to be very, very easy.
And outside of the madness and silliness, like, actually, we are now at a very even game state in a lot of ways, and you can sort of see that Nord, in these smaller scale skirmishes, aren't as devastating as when they are in the full phalanx, when they have the flanks, because when Sejuani just gets to sit there and proc her passive, you've still got a lot of squishy members for Nord, particularly in those solo lanes. And this Ezreal's 4-0-2 has got Trinity Force. It's not miles off from Manamune. Toaster can absolutely fry the opposition here, all puns intended.
I think that's the key thing. Any concerns about range that you've got for Ruddy are answered by this Ezreal. 51 more stacks until that transforms into the Mirror Mana. Ruddy with a potential soul point if they're able to take down this Hextech Drake. Nord Summoning the Herald in the mid lane, so that's going to get some priority. That may even take down that mid lane tower, but they lose the fight around this Drake. They're going to feel worse for it.
Boy.
Big engage coming through the cave of Zerg. It knocks away two. Zapto getting a double at the engagement, and Hido untouched firing out damage, but he doesn't have enough. Ruddy just keep diving on top of Nord, claim more kills for Toaster, take the Drake as well.
How different is this from yesterday? Zapto is landing so much more. It's having so much more of an impact. And Hido cannot survive on the Ashe. This is not a 15-1-10 on Ashe. This is a 0-3-2 Ashe going into an Ezreal that is quickly becoming unmatchable.
Important to note, right, that entire fight, Hido doesn't have Cleanse. It's such a powerful summoner spell when trying to disengage Leona, disengage Sejuani. Without that, there's nothing really Hido can do. Flash out of one of them, you get hit by the next one. There's just too much long-range CC for Ruddy, and if there's nobody blocking, if Indecision's not in the way, if Seneca's not there with the Mikhail's ready to go, it does just make the life of this Ashe way too hard.
Little bit of a freeze here, so not actually sure whether this back happened safely. Does look like
alive.
it came on through, so good news. So as we were left there with a bit of a cliffhanger, we might run into Indecision here, and oh boy, the Poppy is about to have a fun time there. Just get to walk away as a Shield of Daybreak just stuns him in place. But what I was about to say is there's something to be said for the fact that actually, you know, you have also got the problem of Envy has got how many good ultimates to steal this game? Like, everybody on the side of Nord is a great ultimate for Sylas, especially with some AP behind it. Like, what? Slicing Maelstrom, and the Keeper's Verdict, and the Buster Shot, and the
Can we just
Arrow.
list all of them? Like,
They're all so good, but also, like, things like the Asher already has an AP scaling. Like, it's pretty damn heavy. If Sylas gets a couple items and gets to continue to get involved, the lane matchup isn't going to matter when you've got a really good pairing with the Leona, with the Darius, with the Sejuani, with all those ultimates to steal.
I, for one, am really looking forward to full AP Sylas stealing Poppycopter and reminiscing about AP Alistair, where you would W somebody who's on like 400 HP and they'd be like, oh, okay, I'm just going to get knocked away, and then they die instantly. That's what the vibe is for the Poppy.
Do you remember Emperor Palpatine when he used to build static shiv and just used to throw lightning hands all the time?
Emperor?
You don't know Emperor Palpatine? Ah, that's classic League of Legends lore right there.
I heckin' love Star Trek.
Rudy, you're testing me this game. You really are.
SG1 was probably my favourite series, not going to lie. It pains me to say that because I absolutely love Star Trek. But looks like Ruddy may have taken down the mid lane tower. We're not entirely sure at this point. It'd be nice for them if they did, because they have managed to put themselves into a very, very decent spot in this game. But we don't know whether that's improving.
It is worth saying that we are also experiencing these technical difficulties, so we do apologise. And any time that we end up going off on slight tangents, it's probably because our game is frozen as well. So we're doing what we can on production side. I know that production is also doing what they can, so just bear with us. We are going to try our absolute best to make sure that everything runs as smoothly as possible. But for the time being, we will be your entertainers, if nothing else.
We're trying our very best. I think we'll avoid the Scooby-Doo voices for at least another 10 minutes. We've got a little bit of time before we devolve back then to using more than 2% of our power. But like, I'll also say credit to Ruddy for throwing enough punches in the early game to prevent the potential turret siege monstrosity that Nord could have become. And for making sure that, yes, the Kennen was scary, but is still manageable. They've managed to pick him off in some of those side lanes and throw some more of those punches. They're also at Soul Point very early on into this game, and there are no dragons back on the other side. They got an early Herald as well, and they have played the objective game pretty cleanly, and now they're in a position where, yes, some of the laning phases weren't as clean as they would like. Yes, there's still some issues with some of the later game teamfight scenarios. It's still a pretty damn good position for them, and they are armed and dangerous enough, particularly Toaster, who's just quiet, not so quietly really, come up to a really heavy point of power. I feel like Nord need to make this next dragon fight work, or it's lights out.
Yeah, because Ruddy have executed on their style, right? It's been relentless. Yes, we said the early game stay was a little bit quieter, but it felt like as soon as they've got to this point where they can actually teamfight and they can actually skirmish with multiple members on the same screen, it's looked very damn good. But I don't know. The Nord's like plot armor of going 2-0 into 0-2 every single week, it seems pretty powerful. So I guess, Rudude, I kind of want to throw this ball your way if you want to catch it. What do they want to be doing out through the remainder of this game to ensure they can actually get a 2-0 on the board?
We're looking for flanking wards and we're looking for cannon fight, because whenever you've got a cannon, any team fight can go your way. It's a matter of execution and how easy it is to send said cannon into the backline. Deep TP wards, cannon take sweep and make sure that he's not on vision for any of the mid-game skirmishes, late-game skirmishes that we're going to end up seeing, and make sure that you can find that backline. We saw Toaster largely untouched in the final fight that we had, and I think that if that remains to be the case, your Ezreal, who will now have Mirror Mana working toward that third item, is going to be able to tear through you. So if he's free hitting, it's a dangerous situation. But you've got good dive. You have good tools to get into that backline. Make them work.
With that in mind, I do have to call out Nord for not doing their due diligence in this mid game. They have not pulled off a 1-3-1 very cleanly. They've not pulled off the pressure they could have had with a static Shiv Kennen and a Tristana with lane prio into melee matchups. There should have been a pretty easy turret destruction, particularly of those outer turrets. That hasn't happened. They have not been warding and setting up for those shoves particularly cleanly. And Ruddy have really punished very, very well. They've collapsed with Pui, with the Sejuani, with whatever solo laner they've got available. I think particularly that teleport down to the bot lane where you gave up both solo laners kind of for free was pretty egregious. Add in the fact that Toast has actually played out this game pretty well and picked up a few of those kills. And Nord have kind of put themselves into a hole partly of their own making for all that Ruddy have taken the opportunities given to them. I do think Nord just need to be a bit cleaner about setting up some of those shoves.
I do want to go back to something that Middlecott said, right, where as soon as Ruddy have realised where their spikes are, that they've started taking fights around them. This feels like a development and this feels like a benefit, right? Not so much a point of Ruddy not playing to this style of them always looking for fights, but them now evolving that into always looking for fights when they should be, which is a decided markup and a decided growth in this roster, where previously we can definitely say they've taken fights where they shouldn't have done. They played that slightly slower first 5-10 minutes of the game, got to their level 6 markers, got to that power spike, and then started taking the fights as well.
And there's nothing wrong with having a style, with having a theme, with having a way to play. And Ruddy are really good at skirmishing, about playing around good synergies for those brawling, where you have got fun things like this Silas and this Yasuo in the copy event in the back pocket, because I finally picked the right word, for the mid lane, where you've got things like the Darius in the top lane. That's great, but you also need to enable that, right? With the way you're playing, with the way you're drafting, it does feel a little bit more coherent this time. I think, gents, I'd also potentially like to point out there's half a league here who are rubbing their hands at the current game state, because Domino 4-4 Veneer and Unique are going, excellent.
Yep.
Nord are losing. Fourth point in playoffs up for grabs. We like this.
I mean, it's... we had it yesterday. The games all seem to end up in results that made the last few match days of the week as exciting as possible, and that would be the case here again. And obviously, it would give Ruddy a little bit of that cushion to break away from the pack that has been chasing them, that has been putting the pressure on them throughout the course of the split.
It doesn't secure them playoffs a win here, but it makes it damn difficult to get knocked out, I think, is the way that we've worked it out. Pending other results, there's a small chance that they lock it to date. It's not likely to happen, but it is very much unlikely that they get knocked out from here on in. They rely on a lot of other games going a lot of specific ways for them to have a chance at being fallen out of the playoffs if they do lose here. Quick note from our producers as well. We have paused the Observer PC, so with the game is still technically going on, but we aren't going to miss too much of it. Hopefully we'll be able to dive back into largely where we were, so we still get to cover the majority of the action that is left to come in this game. But for the time being, you're stuck with NLC Podcast Mark 3.
We've had a few versions of that.
Well, Middlecott's just the guest. It's always me and you initialised, and now we've just got guest caster initialised.
I feel like he's come on as a guest. He's trying to show us up with this bandana in about 30,000 different colours. This ridiculous
hold on.
It's like, well, what did you do, man?
The guest has always got to come with a weird thing. I feel like if I'm the guest, I feel like I should lean back a little bit further in the chair. I feel like I can relax just that little bit more. Do you want to ask me some questions about stuff? I'm down with that.
So Middlecop, we were having this conversation off air about the value of the name Jackson versus Jack, and obviously your first name is Jack, and that's caused some potential trauma over your life, and I think it's a really good opportunity for you to really delve into your childhood and how that's led to you becoming a League of Legends caster. Go on. Right, well, that's great news. We've done well there. It's got a great chair. I'm actually very jealous of Middle Coast chair.
Right,
Like,
do I have to like pay you by the hour for this? Like, what's going on?
Yeah, look, you're not quite in a green therapist chair, but that chair is. I can see that in like.
You could like lounge, yeah. You get like a little notebook, just like So you crashed the third wave. Why would you say that you did that again? What was the reasoning behind that? All right, he's gone off to grab something now. That's worrying.
There we go.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
Nice.
No,
Really nice leather.
that's leather bound. Yeah.
It is very nice.
Are we notebooking?
Yeah.
Oh,
we've
are we
gotta
comparing
take
notebooks?
notes on Milcott.
Right. I don't know where
Look at
mine
that.
is.
Come on, what have you got?
Mine's got a little ring binder.
quite
Mine
cool.
also has
I
my
don't-
initials on
Okay,
it.
classic.
I think.
I've got like a little. Got like something like this. This is quite cool. I got like a little design on that.
The reason I've been shamed here is that mine is A5 and not A4.
Mine's A5 too, actually.
Mine is also A5. Yeah.
What?
We're all A5
What?
here.
It's just
Wait, mine's one
Yeah,
below
that's
A5
like-
then. I feel like.
A5. Yours is A6.
Yeah.
How
Like,
do you
if I put-
write anything on that? Like, it's not. Oh,
you just-
oh
okay.
no.
Yeah.
Oh,
Hamster
no.
scale.
That's like postcodes only. It's like the only information that you could fit in that notebook.
It's a good address book. I've got a lot of addresses in here to send my letters to.
What, are they all just like the numbers of flats? Like 79, like
It's just
62,
all
like
in codes.
54.
It's just all in codes.
Yeah.
Someone's got to break the Enigma code again to work out what Rude Dude's written on the notes for League of Legends. Just like.
In the
Yeah,
year
'cause it's
13.
Is this the code?
Sorry,
for
yeah,
the
I didn't have time prepared. Could you just send me your notes? Yeah, sure. And here's the cipher as well.
I've got your address in here, so don't worry. Like, I'm ready to go.
It's a competition for what's harder to understand. Your local GP's notes, whatever Rude Dude has written on League of Legends, just in this car pocket. I was going to say something. Oh, that's right. I had actually got something vaguely important. I had just looked
crikey.
up Ruddy's head-to-head scores, and all of the teams underneath them are at best 1-1 against them. The only people that Ruddy are 0-2 against are they've got a 0-2 against Verdant, and they are 0-1 against natives. Everyone else, they're at least 1-1 or 1-0 against. So I think even if someone ties with them, if they win this game, they're guaranteed at the very least a tiebreaker. So it's a pretty big win for them. They are guaranteed at least a tiebreaker with this win. As far as I can tell, unless my eyesight and my reasoning is bad, which is always a possibility. I do wear glasses.
You wear glasses, you're a play-by-play caster, Initialize. I wouldn't take chances on the eyesight and the brain working perfectly, all right?
They hired me as a color caster, mate. So yeah, you're stuck with me now. This is you get my
I would not say stuck with you at all, right?
Stuck, yeah.
I believe
with. Yeah,
I believe that because of the issues that we are having, unfortunately, we're going to have to cut this episode of the podcast short. We are going to be going to a break. Hopefully, we're going to be able to get back into the game in no time at all. But we will see you when we next see you. We're back!
Woo!
League of
Back.
Legends!
Yeah!
It's on our screens, yeah!
It's not
With
Scooby-Doo?
the Baron is invisible. Oh no, the Baron's here, okay. I don't know what was going
No, it
on.
spawns
Sports
at
is
2040
invisible.
now. Middle top.
Yeah,
Come on.
340.
You
Yeah,
didn't read the
look,
patch
it's
notes?
just, it's running late today. It got up late. Come on, man. It's like Rudu's alarm clock.
It had a pause as well, but
My
I
alarm
mean,
is on
Ruddy
time.
committed to it fairly heavily, actually. 4,000 HP, Indecision able to knock one away. Pui, the initial target
That's
of
what
the
he'll
engage
like.
is going to throw up the shield of an A-Break for a little bit more tankiness. We've got a little bit of a split fight here, but Toaster, he's
Of one.
able
In
to
comes
get
Shihan.
kills. Hido being focused
God.
onto Shihan, getting into the back line, and the stoling, slicing Maelstrom slices through the hearts of Nord as Shihan cuts off their heads.
That is brutal. The Darius is not stopped. The Darius gets to come in after all the CC is used. And the Darius just decapitates 3 members. They get the Baron too, and that was after Zapdo misses the ult. After you see the Poppy knock a member away, and Nord still can't come third.
I love Hextech Rifts, I think is my takeaway from that whole play.
Great.
Shihan there is just able to buy himself a flank by nature of the Drake. Absolutely really, incredible play around the environment, making sure that he's able to get on top of the carries at that right time. Credit to Ruddy for being able to stall that fight out for so long as they did, because they were fighting that at theoretically a numbers disadvantage. Shihan did get knocked away, wasn't a part of that for the most part. My question is, where was Catch Cost for all of that? Because he still got Flash and Slicing Maelstrom. And, without him being a part of that fight, you got to see Ruddy absolutely walk away with it.
Oh boy.
Oh, Indecision
again.
engaging onto 5 members of Ruddy. I'm not sure
Arrow.
this is a smart idea,
Catchcross.
mate. Here comes Catchcross with the
Oh,
slicing
dear.
Maelstrom, but it is
Oh, no.
fundamentally not enough. Ruddy's wallet's way too full. Nords, well, they're just trying to pick up scraps.
You cannot jump into 5 people on Tristana like that, Oman. I'm sorry, but that is just not allowed. Even if you land the Kennen ult of all Kennen ulties, it's just not okay. Catchcross does his best, but it's not nearly enough. Unfortunately, it means Soul likely to go over to Ruddy as well. Nord trying to play a little bit sneaky there on their entrance to the jungle, and it just does not come through.
Look, I know it's a slip-up, but Kane works just fine because Umbral Trespassers get shot. They got absolutely wrecked in that one. Tristana jumps in, and you don't hop that fence. There is a big electric fence that says, do not trespass. It's a bad idea. And you know why? Because there's an Ezreal arm with a high-powered sniper rifle, namely 3 items at 909, ready to absolutely eviscerate you. And that's without counting the rest of the carries, which are doing just fine themselves. This is Soul, and Nord have so few ways to stop this. It is a last gasp, but I think they're out of air.
Yep, no room to breathe.
Brad.
Indecision going to be cut down. They try for one last gasp, engage, but Ruddy find them with ease, flashing
That's
over the
brutal.
wall. Not even sure they care about the Soul. They can start taking structures from inside the base.
I think Nord are going to be losing their souls after this because they're put into the ground again. It's a 5 for none. It has slipped so far away from their hands. It's Soul. It's 10,000 gold. It's only 23 minutes in. How do you stop any member of Ruddy, it feels, at this point? They've all so difficult to deal with.
It doesn't help that Indecision, their supposed front line, is just not tanky. Like, period, at this point. We've got Even Shroud as an opener, and not even a completed Sunfire Cape at this point. It's super difficult for anybody to try and absorb
There it is,
any damage. It gets picked up, but, is it going to help at this stage? The notion around tanks and carries is that carries outscale tanks just because of the way the items interact with one another. And when you've got far and away more items on your carries than the enemy tanks do, it just makes this game so very
could
difficult.
they? That's it. It's over. That's 75 gold wasted. And considering how slim the gold lead is, I think that's probably doomed.
Yeah, true.
Oh, you didn't have to do him that dirty, Initialize.
I mean, I did. I did, actually. It's like actually contractually obligated as a guest. I have to do someone dirty every game.
Oh, I didn't realize.
I thought it was going to be you, Middle Cop, but I thought I'd leave you out this time.
Well, thank you very much. It is a 10,000 gold lead for Ruddy, and they have just been running the map for the last 5 minutes, and every time Indecision gets caught by a member of Ruddy, his death feels inevitable. To be perfectly honest, Shihan grabs one more for himself. It's the 8th death of the game for the Puppy, and for Ruddy, whilst they haven't broken the base yet, they are in a prime position to do so.
It's bullying at this point. What else do you say? I mean, I just want to look at Toaster as well. He's 10-0-13. He went 15-1 and 10 yesterday. He's 0-5 and 3 today on the same champion. What a discrepancy. I think they're just going to keep shoving. Look where Cashco is. He needs to come back now.
Makes it back, but his inhibitor's already gone down. And, you know, I agree with the bullying point. Ruddy hadn't broken open the base because they knew that Nord were going to keep overextending and keep allowing kills to come through. Because at this point in the game, there is no way back for Nord. It is unfortunately just a slow demise, and it is on Ruddy to lose this game. They have a 12,000 gold lead. They've got a hyper-fed Ezreal who's not had any threat on him this entire game. The way Nord win is through Ruddy giving them the game back, and it's not just one team fight going their way, it's multiple.
And worrying for Nord, obviously, because next week they've got to play against Veneer and Domino, two of those teams that are really in the thick of it with them. Stolen it, Ashel. I don't think that's going to get turned into a kill. The slow, actually, from Toaster. He just dumped over the wall. He's going to be fine. But for Nord, you really would have wanted to pick up a win here today, because going up against those guys in the last week of the split is always going to be difficult. There's going to be so much fire in those teams trying to secure that last playoff spot, and you really would have loved to build some distance today.
They're going to smell blood in the water. There's no.
Oh my god, what is this?
Oh my god. That's a moment.
Unsuccessful. Well, potentially not actually. Kaskos staying alive with the lightning maelstrom and MV carry flanking on the side. Nord, they managed to split up Ruddy, but that doesn't look great for them. Only one dropping off the table for now, but Pui gets even more. Took a little bit of time in that fight for Ruddy to find the ace, but they shall find it nonetheless. They'll knock down Nord's base and grab their 7th win of the splits.
You've got to respect it. If there's any way to come back into the game, it's taking out the AD carry. Toaster had to burn heal that time round. It just wasn't enough, and Nord do end up falling.
It's a charge of the Light Brigade, and it just doesn't work out. They are gunned down in the last stand, and it is over.
Nexus going to be dropping it down. Ruddy with the win. Nord under pressure in the final week of competition. They're going to need to pick up as many wins as they can.
Wow. I mean, that was a wild game to follow, right? Because like I was looking at this game and I was in the early game, okay. I was a little bit shaky about my prediction, right? Because all these early bot gangs drew out so many resources from Ruddy. Like, so many plates on these solo lane as initialized, but why were Nord unable to convert it into like a proper like advantage?
We kind of touched on it in game, but part of it is Ruddy prioritized the early objectives against actually early lane leads, and 2, Nord were not doing due diligence in taking those lane leads and allowing them to push on those towers safely. We saw the Tristana and the Kennen both bleed their leads over a few consistent fights and overextensions in side lanes, and credit over to, yes, Toaster for getting some of those kills and becoming a threat, but actually the rest of Ruddy for just becoming this roaming gang squad and just absolutely beating down on those solo laners time and time again.
Nobody else has anything to add to that point? I thought it was a great
we got a good enough time during all of the pauses to see what was going wrong. we got a good enough time to also do some other shenanigans, but for the most part, I think we've beat this game home for how Ruddy sort of controlled their way to a lead and how Nord otherwise failed to execute on what their composition wanted to do.
I think for me, right, like the detail of this game was Shihan getting poppycoptered to Kingdom Come, or to take the Hexgate portal back to the flank. I mean, that was like one of the most fun interactions I've seen. The hard moment initialize.
It is really rough to see when your Darius without TP gets better flanks than Cashco did on Kennen for most of that game. We saw one Kennen engage in the river, kind of when it looked like Nord were about to run away with it. And then moments after, they get picks in the bot lane. And Ruddy were finding these counter kills after plays had ended. And then you hit this point where suddenly this Darius is coming into fight second, and there's nothing left to stop him. When you realize the Silas is stealing these insane ults with a bit of damage by them and doing a lot of work. And you're kind of realizing, actually, unless we're the ones finding the flanks, this is really tricky, especially because we haven't snowballed the lead. We have seen Tristanas do this so many times in the West where you get an early lead in lane because you just get shove and you get to take a tower, and then you don't manage to snowball from there because you aren't synced up with your jungler. You're not tracking enemies properly, and you start bleeding out these leads. And we saw what Ruddy drafted for. It wasn't exactly, a shock and a horror. They drafted to brawl with a load of melee champions, and they got to do that relatively freely. We didn't see the same coordination in fights. We didn't see the flanks, and we certainly didn't see a kind of cohesive setup around objectives, nor relate to every single one of them.
Yeah, so the team that you talked about right there, Ruddy, they have a little note for us here. I think it's a video. Let's kind of see what that's about.
Okay.
Okay guys, one more time, little recap. If you are in North Croydon this weekend, watch out, we've got the inside source that there's going to be a wetting. So, pack your goggles, your brolly, your towel, stay warm and stay safe. Kathy, get this off me. I'm not going to tell Paul I'm not doing the weather again. Alright? Okay. What you've all been waiting for. NLC drama, Astralis, Team Falcons, what is happening? You know me guys, I've got the inside source like a Nando's, and I'm going to fill you in now. You've all seen it, you've all seen the French people reaction to this. They don't want Astralis leaving, I mean riots. I'm not talking about games, I'm talking about riots we haven't seen since Millwall down the Old Kent Road with the trophy showing. I mean shopkeepers, eat your heart out, it was dangerous that night. But the thing is, this story, I'm not going to give you all the tidbits, all the information, but what I've kind of got the gist of, I'm building little piece there, I'm building my story is, there's a bit of a language barrier, cultural difference between Team Falcons and Riot Games. Maybe they dress different, Riot saying, no, get out. They don't want any of it. And, you know me guys, I'm open-minded, I love everyone. Patrick. If I'm at a salad bar, I'm having all of it. No matter your skin colour, gender, I love the lot. Every single one of them, bring them in. I mean, I'm taking raw onions, cook them a little bit. I'm not a fan of the raw onions, but aside from that, I want everything. So, rather than judge here today at Ruddy News, we want to try bring cultures together to really understand where they're coming from. And the way we do that is food. Now, what we've done is we found a local family business of Saudi cuisine. So, we're going to try their food today to try understand where they're coming from. We found a random kebab shop. There you go, guys. And we're going to be taking it... No? We didn't find a random kebab shop. That was actually cancelled. But we found something of similar origin, similar impact and meaning to their culture. What we have is... Wow. Guys, we have a ham baguette. A ham baguette. Wow. The meat's layered. Amazing. Lettuce too. Healthy fellows. Wow. Jogging on a Tuesday, I'd imagine. We're going to go straight in and have a taste. Woo! Wow. That spice. Those fellow and those spices. Wow. Jesus. That is amazing. You know me, guys. I know my food. Wow. I say bring them in. Bring them into the league. If you cook food like that, I want you in. Do you know what I mean? Their culture, the spices with the meat and the lettuce, you can tell they know how to include and bring things together. So, bring them in. Anyway, that's all we have time for tonight. Shout out our sponsors, Dr. Fresh Dental Floss, sorry. You know what they say, clean teeth, happy wife, all that lovely jazz. So, I'm going to get this ham out my teeth, and I'll see you tomorrow when we take a look at Manaflow Bando's starting performances in Division 4 NLC.
I mean, guys, that was words of wisdom from the legend himself.
Wisdom
think,
teeth.
right?
Wisdom teeth? Yeah.
I feel that in 10 years of reporting, Paul is really hitting a kind of like Patrick. Oh, sorry, not Patrick.
Yeah.
He's kind of hitting a level that really is unmatched in journalism. That was a special opinion piece.
I genuinely, I think he does need an extra few years covering.
You reckon?
Yeah, well, I think the Outer Mongolian third division cricket league is notoriously undercovered, and I feel like he'd be able to really elevate the storylines of that region. But obviously, always nice to hear from him. Sort of like him, Dom Sacco, really the two journalistic giants that we have here, certainly in the UK scene, if not the entire Nordics as well.
Yeah, and also, I mean, look, to improve his weather reporting, you should look towards Big Nasty, right? Best weather reporter in the UK.
Well, I think the problem is that he's only really specialised with Ruddy in cold weather. It's only cold takes from him. He doesn't really have any ability to bring the kind of heat as yet, and I think that is a problem with that side of his reporting.
Yeah, I think you look at LeBron James, if you're talking about bringing the heat there, that's exactly what you need to do. Go down to Miami, make it happen.
Yeah.
It's not happening in Cleveland. It's not going to work there.
American sports talk. Why do we do this? While you guys sit on that one for a bit, we're going to go to a short break. When we come back, we're going to have more action, as we are going to be seeing Unique take on Verdant, so don't go anywhere, guys. everybody, and welcome back to the NLC. My name is Wita, and I am joined by Unique's mid laner, Unique Khan here. So, first of all, congratulations on a great result yesterday.
Oh, thanks. Thanks for having me.
No problem, no problem. So, you guys going into a matchup today here against Verdun, so a pretty tough week for you. How do you see this matchup going into today?
I think